I'm Deborah Atkinson, host of the Flipping 50 podcast and Flipping 50 TV. What are those three things? And seriously, just three? What are those three things that every woman over 40 needs? Well, I can tell you from 37 years in the fitness industry and as a coach since 2000, specifically working with women in all ages of life. But I really narrowed down my focus to women in menopause, primarily perimenopause and postmenopause. And that means Flipping 50 is not just the 5-0 between 49 and 51. It's all of your second 50. And here's what's important for all of us. Number one, strength training. So the way to hold on to your lean muscle mass, to continue to be strong, vibrant, have tons of energy, and to avoid becoming frail, avoid falls that result in fractures, meaning osteoporosis, is strength training. You've absolutely got to do it. So those of you, I know you're out there, who influence young girls, get them into the strength training room sooner rather than later, because you know if you're a woman who waited, it's not as easy when you're maybe not quite as body confident as you were in your 20s and 30s to start in the weight room. However, no matter when you start, girlfriend, start, because you can get results at any age. My mom's 94. If I had one wish for her this year, it would be she would start strength training. Okay, what's number two? Number two, I was holding and waving a fork in front of you. Now, there's a book, of course, Forks Over Knives, but my point is you need protein. And it ties right back to number one. The reason for strength training is maintaining lean muscles and bones. And in order to do that, you're going to need protein to fuel those muscles. Protein is the building blocks of muscle, and within that protein, the building blocks of essential amino acids. We have to eat more protein now than we did when we were in our 20s and 30s in order for our bodies to synthesize that protein, actually use it, break it down for our muscles. That muscle protein synthesis isn't as good when we're 50 as it was when we were 20, and you can guess that when we're 60 and 70 and 80, it's not going to be nearly as good. The thing that helps your muscle protein synthesis is strength training. So again, resistance training for the muscle and for opening up and making the muscle and your body ripe to using protein that you take. It's like a 1-2 punch. And we need that muscle and the bone, and they equally need the protein. So I'll give you a little range of how much, but I would almost bet that for most women, if you're watching and you're over 40, it's more than you've been eating. So that first hit of the day, that first meal that you have, whether you're fasting and that's not till 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., or you eat early in the morning, that first meal, if it's high quality, high protein, ideally you're shooting between about 30 and 40 grams. Yeah, at the meal, not all day. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, I'm sitting right here next to my blender. I'm a smoothie girl, but you can have dinner, you can have leftovers of breakfast for breakfast, your lunch and dinner. We're the only country in the world that has quote unquote breakfast foods, but unfortunately, almost all of them, except for maybe bacon and sausage and eggs, are high carb. That's not going to help you. Not going to help your blood sugar, not going to help your cortisol level, which is all not going to help your belly fat. So if you want support, natural support for stabilizing your hormones, namely cortisol and insulin, so that you get support stabilizing the rest of them, you want a high protein breakfast. So you can sit down to salmon, you can sit down to chicken or shrimp, you can actually have a smoothie, as I so often do, but just that serving of protein powder is not going to do it. So you want to put in some extra things like nuts and seeds or nut butter and hemp hearts that boost that protein powder and the content of your protein. And you want to throw in lots of vegetables, a little bit of fruit, and get a wide, diverse amount, just like you were sitting down to a meal. If you do love a smoothie, for that killing decision fatigue that it does for me every day. All right, what's number 3? I've already given you strength training, more protein. And number 3 is high intensity interval training. You don't need a lot of it, but you need a little of it. And the little of it that you need is equally as important as anything else that you're going to do. Here's where we get carried away. We think a little is good, a lot must be better, because HIIT is known for supporting fat burning. But here's the truth. It's not as good at that as strength training is. So don't get carried away. You want about 45 minutes total of HIIT, high intensity interval training, a week. That's a week, not a session. So that's potentially twice doing 20 to 25 minutes of high intensity interval training, or it's 3 times doing 15 minutes each. Now, when I say 15 minutes or the 20 minutes, what I mean is ultimately you're warming up before that. You're cooling down after that. So your entire session is going to be a little bit longer, but that 15 minutes consists of alternating the high intensity interval training and the slower than cool down kinds of recovery moments. So you might do 30 seconds all out, gonna go really hard. You're power walking up a hill, or maybe you are sprinting on your treadmill, depending on what your needs are, your muscles, your joints, and what you have access to right now also really matters. That whole interval, the 30 seconds and then the minute recovery, that's included, all of it, in your 15 minutes of high intensity interval training. You can also go a minute hard and a minute easy. You can make it really easy then to remember. There are lots of variations, but just remember this: when you start high intensity interval training, no one should start with a longer work portion than the recovery. So you always want to work hard but recover longer, especially as a beginner. You don't want to get sloppy and tired and lose your form and risk injury. So women in midlife are actually more prone, and I don't have a study to quote on this, but I can tell you over 37 years of experience in working with all different ages, specifically though the longest working with women in midlife, there are a lot more injury rates at midlife for women. We know it's related to hormones, we just don't know how directly. So when you think plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel, elbow tendonitis, those issues are much more common among women in midlife. Part of that is related potentially to, we get to a point where we're gaining weight, we can't control it, and we want it off yesterday. We jump in and we do too much too soon. So go figure. But we're already more prone to a little bit more breakdown because we're losing estrogen, which has a protective factor for our muscle. And it's already breaking down faster because of that. So we need rest and recovery between exercise and between your intervals. So 30 seconds to do the work and a minute to do the recovery. You want to kind of skip those programs that are causing you to do longer work, shorter recovery, and do that repeatedly many times during a workout, because as you get closer and closer to the end of that workout, you're going to find you're more likely to fall apart and lose your form. And listen, girlfriend, you have all the time you need. Form is really important to getting the results that you want. There you have it. 3 things every woman over 40 needs: strength training, to muscular fatigue twice a week. Doesn't have to be more than that. Number 2, protein, probably more than you're used to having. So if you're thinking, I'm doing all the things and I'm not getting any results, try a little bit more protein. 3rd, HIIT, high intensity interval training. Make sure you're getting breathless. 1 to start, 2 or 3 times a week, but don't overdo it. Rest and recovery between those sessions is also important. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Are you kidding? What about sleep? What about X, Y, and Z? So I get it. Yeah, Absolutely. Sleep is really important. So is stress reduction. But here's the deal. If you feel like right now you need to restore before more, that's actually the number one of 10 tenets of Flipping 50, then I would agree. If you feel like you can't even think about strength training, you can't even think about high intensity interval training, then potentially yes. Restore before more. Start by walking, start by sleeping, start by trying to de-stress, eliminate some of those things that you can from your life, and reduce others, or find ways to laugh and people who you can vent to, because that too can make it better. Not necessarily make it go away, but it can make it better. But what about sleep? Let's talk about that one. So when you're not getting sleep, probably the first step to getting sleep is getting a little bit of exercise. So by starting the strength training and or starting the HIIT, or really narrowing down on, I'm gonna do this and keep myself consistent, your sleep will get more stable. So if you're finding that sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, definitely that's hormones, and I've got the key to that. So look down in the description, and first you might want to subscribe if this is helpful. But down in the description, I've got a Sleep Yourself Skinny book that might be helpful if you feel like I've tried all the things. But often what I find is women have tried things randomly and not necessarily consistently enough. So I like to take women through, let's start with this. Here's how you start and progress and really give it a try before we go on to the next thing. So we've got to really isolate whatever it is that we're doing. So we know, does it or does it not work? There you have it. 3 big things and the other things that they will help. I'll see you on the flip side. If that was helpful, don't forget to subscribe, jump down, and get the book, Sleep Yourself Skinny, or try my 5-day flip. If you're just, I don't know where to start, I don't know what an interval looks like, or where to start strength training, I've got 5 short videos for you, less than 15 minutes each, and they'll come 5 days in a row. And I'll see you on the flip side.